of the things that I'm looking for is whether that writer is listening to drama at the moment, because you get scripts and you think this person hasn't listened to drama properly, because drama has changed a lot on radio. It's a lot quicker, there's a lot shorter scenes, it's very filmic.
I think it's useful to think visually in radio, but in an oral way. So a drama that Esther Wilson wrote for radio called Tony Teardrop about the homeless. We begin that drama with a couple of guys giggling and the striking of a match, and then you hear the sound of burning, and you hear a cityscape, and then a woman wakes up and her clothes are on fire, and it's a homeless woman. So it's incredibly visual, that, but you can write it in a beautiful oral way.
With radio, you can do quite a lot of interesting things with single voice, and what can be very exciting is if you mix internal voice with dialogue, but in a very fluid way, so that it's not just, oh, here's the narrative bit, and now I'm going to show you in action what that person has just said. But if you're actually flowing from one to the other throughout a piece, it's probably the only medium that can do that really effectively.
Use the medium, use sound, use acoustics. Think about, inside and outdoor acoustics and what that's going to do to the ear, because all the time you're trying to keep the listeners interested in your story.
You've got to also give them a bit of action really early on, an inciting incident, a question that will hook them, that they will then want to stay and hear the answer to. And that's got to happen really early on in radio. So within the first 5 minutes, you've got to have laid out your stall and said, this is what my play is going to be about. You've also got to be really clear what your genre is really early on. So if it's a comedy, make sure you make them laugh within the first 5 minutes, because some people will stay because it's a comedy, and if you know it's a comedy, but the jokes aren't for 20 minutes, no one else is going to know that. They may have switched off before then.
In some ways, it's the same as a script for any other medium, that I want to be taken to somewhere new, interesting, for the world to be opened up to me in a new way. But it's also about using the medium, and that means thinking about acoustics, thinking about sound, thinking about how one scene moves to another, thinking about a limited number of characters through telling your story in probably no more than 7 main characters.
First thing I look for is how many scenes. I really do. As soon as the script arrives, if it's got less than 12 scenes, I'm thinking, maybe this writer hasn't thought about the medium.
Great characters, strong, compelling narrative, original voice, original story. So that, I think, applies to any medium. But specifically for radio, what I look for is also an imaginative, creative vision about how you're going to use the acoustic space. I'm
looking at the writer thinking in filmic terms. Orson Welles said it's a film for the mind, and you can do that. It sounds counterintuitive, but you can make radio drama as a film. But you do it in collaboration with the listener.
Radio is an incredibly intimate medium because of the way people consume it. Most of the time people are listening on their own, and so that has the effect of you as the writer talking straight into the ear of an audience member. It's generally not a group listening experience. It's very, very, very intimate.
A lot of audiences come to it while they're doing something else. Quite often they're driving, they're walking around their kitchen, maybe they're cleaning up. Sometimes they're doing emails whilst they're listening. So what you've got to do is something that really grabs their attention quite early on and holds them, because what you really want to do is to stop them doing whatever they're doing. Obviously, if they're driving, you don't want them to stop driving. That would be really bad and dangerous. I'm not advocating that. But you kind of want them to be interested enough in what they're hearing that they want to hear the end of the story, so that they don't switch it off.
I think it's also worthwhile you know, this is hard truth to accept, that they might walk out into another room, or they might miss a bit in the car, or their journey might end, and they might not listen, they might not be able to listen to it all. And of course you can listen again, and there are other ways of catching up. So you have to make every scene brilliant.
The most ambitious thing is that you've got a story to tell, and that you are desperate to tell that story. You can usually tell with a writer if they have a passion about it. It's about a passion.
Don't be ambitious just for the sake of it. Be ambitious if you have an ambitious idea with an ambitious epic landscape to set it in. Then you can be ambitious, but don't just try and force your characters into this, you know, great ambitious world if your story is actually a delicate story about two people who fall in love. That's perfectly valid and beautiful for radio, and that kind of intensity can sometimes work really well. But if you have the great ambitious story that crosses all the continents and goes under the sea and up into space, then, you know, and you've got some great characters, then tell that story. It's a brilliant medium to do that.
One of the dramas I did last year had a scene inside a man's stomach. You can't do that on telly, and you can't do that on film, so you can go everywhere.
Be bold, shake it up, turn things on their head. I'll often say to a writer, look at that scene. I won't be as blunt as this, but it's, you know, I've seen that scene so many times. Why don't you just turn it on its head? Just turn it on its head. Just do something really interesting. Come at it from a really, really different angle, and that will often open it up.